Okay, I think we'll try to do one more sutta. Sutta number 23, Vammika Sutta, the ant hill. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Nathapindika's park. Now on that occasion the Venerable Kumara Kassapa was living in the blind man's grove. Then when the night was well advanced, a certain deity of beautiful appearance, who illuminated the whole of the blind man's grove, approached the Venerable Kumara Kassapa and stood at one side. So standing, the deity said to him, Monk, this ant hill fumes by night and flames by day. Thus spoke the Brahmana. Delve with the knife, thou wise one. Delving with the knife, the wise one saw a bar, O Venerable Sir. Thus spoke the Brahmana. Throw out the bar, delve with the knife, thou wise one. Delving with the knife, the wise one saw a toad, O Venerable Sir. Thus spoke the Brahmana. Throw out the toad, delve with the knife, thou wise one. Delving with the knife, the wise one saw a fork, O Venerable Sir. Thus spoke the Brahmana. Throw out the fork, delve with the knife, thou wise one. Delving with the knife, the wise one saw a sieve, O Venerable Sir. Thus spoke the Brahmana. Throw out the sieve, delve with the knife, thou wise one. Delving with the knife, the wise one saw a tortoise, O Venerable Sir. Thus spoke the Brahmana. Throw out the tortoise, delve with the knife, thou wise one. Delving with the knife, the wise one saw an axe and a block, O Venerable Sir. Thus spoke the Brahmana. Throw out the axe and block, delve with the knife, thou wise one. Delving with the knife, the wise one saw a piece of meat, O Venerable Sir. Thus spoke the Brahmana. Throw out the piece of meat, delve with the knife, thou wise one. Delving with the knife, the wise one saw a naga serpent, O Venerable Sir. Thus spoke the Brahmana. Leave the naga serpent, do not harm the naga serpent, honor the naga serpent. Monk, you should go to the Blessed One and ask him about this riddle. As the Blessed One tells you, so should you remember it. Monk, other than the Tathagata or a disciple of the Tathagata or one who has learned it from them, I see no one in this world with its gods, Maras and Brahmas, in this generation with its recluses and Brahmins, its princes and its people, whose explanation of this riddle might satisfy the mind. That is what was said by the deity, who thereupon vanished at once. I stop here for a moment. So this monk was living in the blind man's grove, in the forest, practicing. And at night, a deva came. He says deity, not sure whether it was a deva or a devi, and was very bright. And he spoke this riddle to this monk, saying that this anthill fumes by night and flames by day. And then this Brahmana, this holy man, came and told this wise man. He said, use the knife, delve with the knife, go take the knife and search, poke out, see what you can find. And then the first thing he saw was a bar. This wise man saw a bar, and he said he saw a bar. And then the Brahmana, the holy one, told him, throw away the bar and continue delving again. And then he saw a toad, and then he asked him to throw away the toad and delve again, and he found a knife, etc. So this deity said very few people will be able to answer this riddle. Then when the night was over, the Venerable Kumara Kassapa went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, he sat down at one side and told the Blessed One what had occurred. Then he asked, Venerable Sir, what is the ant hill? What the fuming by night? What the flaming by day? Who is the Brahmana? Who is the wise one? What is the knife? What is the delving? What the bar? What is the toad? What the fork? What the sieve? What the tortoise? What the axe and block? What the piece of meat? What the naga serpent? And the Buddha said, Monk, the ant hill is a symbol for this body, made of material form, consisting of the four great elements, procreated by a mother and father, built up out of boiled rice and porridge, and subject to impermanence, to being worn and rubbed away, to dissolution and disintegration. What one thinks and ponders by night, based upon one's actions during the day, is fuming by night. The actions one undertakes during the day, by body, speech and mind, after thinking and pondering by night, is the flaming by day. The Brahmana is a symbol for the Tathagata, Arahant, Sammasambuddha. The wise one is a symbol for a monk in higher training. The knife is a symbol for noble wisdom. The delving is a symbol for the arousing of energy. The bar is a symbol for ignorance. Throw out the bar, abandon ignorance. Delve with the knife, thou wise one. This is the meaning. The toad is a symbol for the despair due to anger. Throw out the toad, abandon despair due to anger. Delve with the knife, thou wise one. This is the meaning. Let's stop here for a moment. The bar is a symbol for ignorance, because the bar is a big obstruction. So the Brahmana is the Buddha. Buddha says, throw out ignorance, because it's a big obstruction. And then the toad is a symbol for despair due to anger. Toad is an ugly thing. So when we are angry, we are also ugly. That's why the toad is a symbol for despair due to anger. The fork is a symbol for doubt. Throw out the fork. Abandon doubt. Delve with the knife, thou wise one. That is the meaning. The sieve is a symbol for the 5 hindrances, namely the hindrance of sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, and doubt. Stop here for a moment. So the fork is a symbol for doubt. The fork, there are so many, so many ends. You don't know which one to choose. You have doubt. The sieve is symbolizes a fine obstruction. The bar just now was a big obstruction. The sieve is a finer obstruction, because the sieve tends to obstruct some things from passing through. So that's why it's a symbol for the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances are the 5 obstructions. The tortoise is a symbol for the 5 aggregates of attachment, namely the body, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness aggregates. So why is the tortoise a symbol for the 5 aggregates? Because the tortoise has got the when it's walking, 4 limbs come out plus the head, right? So there are 5 things. The axe and block is a symbol for the 5 chords of sensual pleasure. Forms, sounds, odors, flavors, tangibles that are wished for, desired, agreeable and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. According to the commentary, the axe symbolizes sensual desire and the block symbolizes sense objects. So if you say the axe is sensual desire, the block is sense objects, so the axe will chop the block. But sensual desire chopping sense objects does not seem so logical. Maybe it's the other way around. Axe is the sense objects, because the sense objects impinge on us. The forms impinge on our eye. You can say chop our eye. Sounds chop our ears. Smells or odors chop our nose, etc. So the block maybe is the sense basis. Our eye, our ear, nose, tongue, body and mind, because the sense objects are always chopping our sense basis. The piece of meat is a symbol for delight and lust. The Naga serpent is a symbol for the monk who has destroyed the stains or asavas. That is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Kumara Kassapa was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. And that's the end of the sutta. So here, So here this riddle can be said to be a monk because this wise one is a symbol for a monk in higher training. So a monk in higher training is working hard. To get rid of all these things that are blocking him, starting with ignorance and then despair due to anger, doubt, 5 hindrances, etc. So the Buddha is advising him to continue working. So here the working is to delve with the knife, keep digging up all the rubbish. So eventually he gets down to the Naga serpent, the enlightened being. So he becomes enlightened. So this just this deity, this Deva or Devi, just testing the monk, see whether the monk understands this riddle or not. So we stop here.
I want to check with you something. Is like the monks at Rab, they are actually towards the direction. It seems that they want to go to Nirvana. So it's like house, the Rao river. So probably this is like a craving, like you are like going out of river. So probably we shall be cool, like not to so much craving of out of river or Nirvana to practice this spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
There is one sutta where the Buddha says that generally sensual pleasures brings along with it craving, attachment. But the Buddha says not all sensual pleasures come along with craving, because when you attain jhana, it is also a kind of sensual pleasure, but it does not. The Buddha says not all pleasures brings along craving. The normal sensual pleasures brings along comes with craving, but the bliss of jhana, the pleasure of jhana, does not have craving. And on the reverse, the Buddha says grief generally brings with it grief or suffering brings with it aversion. When you have pain or anything, you have aversion for it. But the Buddha says not all grief comes along with aversion. So the Buddha mentions like somebody who desires liberation. So he's pining for liberation, grieving for liberation, but that does not bring along aversion. So when we desire this liberation, also we must not be too agitated. If you desire too strongly, then it's like the Buddha in his early days, when the Buddha was striving for enlightenment. The desire to become enlightened was so great that he went to great lengths to practice these ascetic practices, these unbeneficial ascetic practices, which gave him a lot of suffering, but which brought no benefit. For example, starving himself, eating only particular types of food, even to the stage of eating only cow shit, cow excrement, and even to the stage of eating his own excrement, Buddha said. And also like eating so little until he was eating 1 grain of rice a day. So he nearly died from that. So that is having excessive desire. That's why in the first sutta of the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha said, when he strove, that means he strove too hard, he was whirled around. Because when he strove too hard, he was so agitated, wanting to become enlightened, that he was whirled about. His mind was very agitated. And then when he stood still, did nothing, he sank. So the Buddha said, without striving and without standing still, he crossed the flood. So you do your work to become liberated, but don't get agitated over it. The important thing when we walk the spiritual path is to be walking on the right path. And the right path, you can only be guided by the Buddha's words. That's why the Buddha said, after he is gone, take the Dhamma and the Vinaya as his teachings. And the Buddha also said, if any monk teaches such and such, claims that such and such is the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha said, don't accept and don't reject. Compare it with the suttas and the Vinaya. If it accords with the suttas and the Vinaya, that is the Buddha's teaching. Otherwise, it is not. So the most important thing is to practice the correct path, following the suttas and the Vinaya. And whether the fruit comes or not, don't worry. The Buddha says, when a hen is sitting on the eggs, I keep sitting. If he is doing this work of sitting on the eggs all the time, then the hen does not need to make a wish. Oh, may my eggs hatch. The Buddha says the eggs will hatch naturally. But if it has not sat long enough on the eggs, then the Buddha says the hen may make a wish. Oh, may my eggs hatch today, or tomorrow may the eggs hatch. It will not hatch. Why? Because he has not done enough work. The hen has not done enough work. So in the same way, we don't count our eggs. So we just do our work, and then just as long as doing your work, the result will come naturally. So the important thing is to walk the right path. The Buddha gave a simile of somebody. He saw some people getting oil by pressing sesame seeds. But probably he saw it from a distance as trying to steal their trade secret. So he saw they were doing this to get oil. So he quietly went, and what did he do? He got sand and tried to crush the sand to get oil. Can he get oil? Cannot get, because he's doing the wrong thing. So in the same way, the Buddha says, when you make effort, make sure you are making effort in the right direction. Don't make in the wrong direction. As long as you are doing it in the right direction, when the result comes, don't worry. If the result doesn't come, that means you haven't sat on the eggs long enough.
Really birthday, one question. On Sutra 32, on paragraph 15, it says that we have to give out ourselves. If we give out ourselves, we will everlasting permanent nirvana. Sorry, repeat now. Because I was reading on the paragraph, it says that we have to give up ourselves attachment so that we can actually become a true, finding our true character. But then, if let's say we reborn and reborn, then there's not a true self. Then we reach I mean, because in our lifestyle, there are so many attachments. So it's quite difficult for us, normal person, to actually achieve a good standard. So unless we are like Ante, learn many years, we are not is there any solution for this dilemma?
You see, if we study the suttas, we find the Buddha said, when he looked into the past 91 world cycles, he saw only 6 Sammasambuddhas. Whereas in another sutta, Isigili Sutta, the Buddha mentioned at one time outside Rajagaha, there was this hill, Isigili. At one time it had 500 Pachika Buddhas. So what the Buddha is trying to say is that 99.99% of Buddhas are Pachika Buddhas. Pachika Buddhas are fully enlightened Buddhas who do not want to teach, do not want to teach the Dhamma to the whole world. So, why is that? Are they selfish? No. They understand that everybody has their own time. As we go along the round of rebirths, we suffer. And when we suffer, we learn lessons. When we learn lessons, slowly we become more and more spiritually mature. So, right now you are a layman. You see me as a monk. Long time ago, I was also a layman. I saw another person as a monk. I was thinking how long it'll be before I become a monk. So, in the future lifetime, one day you will probably also become a monk, and somebody also will ask you the same question. So we all have a time when we go on the round of rebirths long enough, then we suffered long enough, and then we become wiser. Then we realize all the pleasures in the world actually are so fleeting. All the things that you think about in the world that you enjoy them only a short while only. And then if you are greedy, you want to enjoy more. When there's too much of it, sometimes you cannot stand, you blow your mind. Or if it doesn't blow your mind also, you get bored by it. Just as last night, 2 nights ago, I gave the simile, listen to music, music very nice. But you play it too long, it becomes boring. Play longer, it becomes a nuisance already. You keep playing all the time, it becomes suffering already. So changes, everything changes. So don't worry, your time will come. But of course, if you want to take express, then this lifetime become a monk. Leave your wife at home, come and become a monk. Which number 15? Okay.
So divine education should be considered that this is not, this I am not, this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. So the last one, this is not myself, not myself, is the same as a non-self and no-self.
Some people say it is not self.
So sometimes the start is say as non-self.
Sometimes they say no self.
They say
in a way, there's no self, meaning there's nothing that is permanent. If there's something that is permanent, unchanging, you can identify that with the self. But if something only exists for extremely short time, for example, just now I mentioned about our consciousness. Our consciousness arises. And when the consciousness arises, you say you're alive. But the next moment, the consciousness ceases, you are dead already. So when the consciousness arises again, it's a different self already. Different consciousness. So the second consciousness arises. If you identify yourself with it again it will cease. See, and again another consciousness arises. That's a different self already. But all these you say is me, is I. But it's not you. It's changing all the time. So that's why the Buddha says no self.
It's a wrong view to say there's a permanent self. And also the wrong view to say that there is no self.
No, I didn't say it's wrong view to say there's no self.
So, the five case will be arising and ceasing away all the time.
But you see, when sometimes the Buddha talks about the self, in the conventional self, in the conventional sense, when the Buddha says, I teach the Dhamma, but there is no I. Buddha says, I teach them. In the way of speaking, worldly way of speaking, there is a self. But when the Buddha says no self, he says anatta. Anatta means no one thing that is permanent, unchanging, that you can identify yourself with. There's no such thing.
So the arising and ceasing of these five aggregates, is there a term to describe it?
I don't understand.
Is there a term that in a sutta to describe the arising and ceasing of these five aggregates?
The Buddha always talks in the suttas about, I always says that consciousness is dependently arisen. Because there is one sutta where a monk says it is the same consciousness that travels on the round of rebirths. It's the same consciousness. But the Buddha says that's wrong. The Buddha says consciousness, every consciousness is dependently arisen. Depend on what? For example, the seeing consciousness. For the seeing consciousness to arise, there must be a good eye, and there must be a form coming before the eye. And then, when there is contact, then the consciousness arises, the seeing consciousness arises. So similarly, for hearing consciousness, consciousness does not exist automatically by itself. It must have condition for it to arise. That's why the Buddha says consciousness is not an ending stream of consciousness. That's why you notice in the dependent origination, the way the commentators and Abhidhamma talk about vijnana, they talk about the last consciousness, as though consciousness is an unending stream. And then when consciousness ceases, then only they say the consciousness stops and then arises again. But it's not like that. Every moment to moment, consciousness is arising and passing away, rising and passing away.
One more question. Normally, the Chinese believe in this like is it the wrong view or expectation yourself?
No, it's not a wrong view. It's a wrong translation. Because in our English books, this anatta, no self, they translate it as no soul. So because they translate it as no soul, they think there is no linghun. They say there's also the Abhidhamma teaching. The Abhidhamma teaching is that when a being dies here and is reborn there, nothing goes from here to there. That is their understanding of anatta. Their understanding of anatta is that when this being dies here, the consciousness ceases. Nothing travels over to there, but there the consciousness starts. That is not what the Buddha said. The Buddha says that there is this being when he dies here and is reborn as a human being there. This what the Buddha calls a gandhabba. Sometimes it's called intermediate body. This intermediate body will go and enter the womb there. There is something entering the womb. So it's because of their not understanding the nature of consciousness. So they cannot accept that something goes and enters there. Now the teaching of the Buddha is that anatta means that there is nothing permanent. Everything is changing. So this linghun, this soul, is also a bundle of energy. Why cannot you accept this bundle of energy going and being reborn there? Because it's just a bundle of energy only. It's like this being entering the womb. According to those people who remember their past lives, they were reborn as a small being. This small being entered the womb. So if you can accept this big being, this human body is so big compared to the small being that enters the womb. If this small being does not exist, then this body also does not exist. How can he can accept this flesh body to be existing, or a deva so huge can exist? Why can't you accept a small being? It's all to exist. Another thing is that the Buddha says when a person's karma is so bad, then when he dies, he's due to be reborn in hell. Then the hell beings will come up and drag him down to hell. Now drag what? Drag his soul. He cannot drag his body. His body is lying here dead. So the hell beings come up. Ngao Tao Ma Min, Wu Tao Be Bin, come up and drag his soul down to hell. What is this soul? This is a bundle of energy. Of course, this bundle of energy is all within consciousness. It's just a dream only. This being, this so-called being, he dreams that he's being pulled down to hell. This is dream only. Yeah.
Bhante, there are certain the teaching is emptiness. What is comparison to our non-soul?
It's the same thing. Emptiness means empty of a self. Empty is the same. Empty of something that is permanent, unchanging. Sunyata.
Okay. Living for monks is desire, no, many people. But because of family attachments and a lot of attachments, it seems like a bit selfish, just live. So what do you think? Because so to left for monks has got a lot of suffering to the people. How to reconcile this?
There are two types of suffering. There are two types of suffering. One is mental suffering, one is physical suffering. When a monk goes forth and he leaves a family, he should take care of their physical needs. For example, a man, he has started a family, he's got some young kids and all that. If he walks out of the house, the wife has to look after the kids, right? So if he does that, he has to make sure that the family is financially well provided for. For example, like the Buddha. The Buddha, when he renounced, his son was just born only. But he walked out of the house. Why? Because according to the suttas, the Buddha said that his father was rich. That's why I built 3 mansions for him for the 3 seasons. So the family was very rich. So when he walked out of the house, he didn't have to worry about money. They were well provided for. The wife and children was well provided for. Of course, it gave them mental suffering. But this mental suffering, to give them mental suffering is good actually. Why? Because dukkha is a very good teacher. After the Buddha left them, then he practiced and became enlightened. And then he came back, taught them the Dhamma, and helped them to become enlightened. You notice nowadays, because life is good, a lot of young people, they grow up without seeing dukkha. So because they don't see dukkha, they have a particular view of the world. But when they grow up, after they graduate and all this, they go out into the world and work, then they find a lot of dukkha. In the house, as a young man, they had no pressure, no stress. But after they start working, they find so stressful, and the world is so cruel compared to their home. So many people out to cheat them and all that. So the sooner they learn dukkha, the better. Some of the older people like you and me, in our younger days, we did not have such a good life. I remember when I was young, there were times when the tap had no water. I had to walk out to the street and carry water. Because it's not often. But because of that, also because the family was not rich, we learned to be thrifty. We learned to save money and all these things. So we become better for it. So also, in life, people who learn the Dhamma, you see the people who learn the Dhamma at a young age and people who practice the Dhamma at an old age. Sometimes, there are some people refuse to come and learn the Dhamma. And ask them to come and listen to a Dhamma talk, they refuse. Ask them to do charity, they refuse. They say, I don't harm people, why should I take the trouble to go and do charity? Some people have this attitude. So, at the end of life, when they are about to die, then they see the ghost realm, ghost relatives coming to welcome them, and then they panic and then they get scared. Then they realize, last time this Ong used to ask me to go and listen to Dhamma talk and never went to. Then they regret. So that time they learn too late. Right? So in the same way, sometimes a person like myself, when I was young, my parents didn't know Dhamma. So when I told my parents I wanted to renounce, my father's eyes became red. So also I knew it was not ready. So I waited until the time was ready. During that waiting period, my father passed away, and then finally I renounced. And then, of course, my mother felt a lot of dukkha. But after I renounced and I taught the Dhamma, and I taught her to listen to Dhamma, and I saw she benefited from it. So, it helped her a lot now. So she had more time to listen to Dhamma. So, if, for example, you think if I renounce, I'm going to hurt my father. Yes, you're going to hurt your father, but that is good for him. Because hurting him now is better than when he dies, then he realizes the importance of the Dhamma. At that time, you cannot help him already. But now, like the Buddha, when he left, the family was so hurt. But when he came back and taught them the Dhamma, then they realized all that pain was worth it.
Okay, you are very lucky when you see that. For us, when we have a vow to go to this vow, and we have to our son. So that kind of vow is used against us. Against the vow. So it is not an easy thing to get out of it.
If a man gives this type of excuse, it means his time is not ready yet. When he's ready, you see, like the Buddha's time, many arahants were married, like Mahakassapa, the wife, and others also. So many. Some of them even had 4 wives and very rich family and all that. Anuruddha, Bhadia. Bhadia was the chief of the Sakyans. Okay, stop here. Getting late.